All right, let's go for it. Hello out there in MA land. Happy New Year. Welcome to our Tech Talk webinars. This is the first one we've done in quite a while. I think this might actually be the first one we've done with the ma3 software. So it might be a little rusty, but we'll get it sorted out. I'm Ryan Kennerak with the Acolyting Software Support team, coming to you live from my apartment in North Jersey, where I've spent the last 9-10 months, whatever it is. Joining me today is my colleague Araya.
Hey.
And she's in her apartment in LA. I will be doing most of the screen sharing during this today, and Araya will be keeping an eye on the chat and the Q&A. So if you have your questions, if you have any questions as you're going along, feel free to send those over. We do have the chat turned on, but if you have questions specific to what we're covering, please use the Q&A for that. That'll just make it easier for us to keep track rather than potentially getting lost in the middle of the chat. So yeah, let's get into it. Recipes. What are recipes? Recipe, essentially, it's a way to give additional flexibility to your programming. It gives you the ability to adapt to different fixture types or arrangements of fixtures more quickly by allowing you to define your intention, the intention of your programming. And you do that in the form of your programming ingredients. So then, of course, well, what are your ingredients? The ingredients are the pieces that make up your recipe. So you have a selection of fixtures, which is referenced by a group. You have a set of values, which is referenced by a preset, or shown with a preset reference. It could be static values, could be multi-step values, right? A phaser preset. It's just a preset, whatever you have in it. And then you could have the third ingredient is sort of a spread, right, which is your ma3 settings. So that it could be your blocks, groups, wings. Can also be individual timing value or range, right, if you wanted like a delay wipe, or your speed or phase for your phaser. So you have your recipe with your ingredients. So then how do you actually turn that into data? Well, you cook your recipe, of course. So there's a keyword in the command line called cook. And so you cook an object or you cook a recipe to take the data, to apply the information, the preset and the ma3 settings. You apply that to your fixture selection, your group, to get data. That information that is created when you cook is gets flagged as this data was cooked. When you cook, you have a few options. You can merge, which basically says anything that was previously cooked from this object, get rid of that, use the new stuff, and if there's existing information, say in your preset, that didn't come from a recipe, right? Like you just created a preset normally by selecting some fixtures and applying values and storing that to a preset. Cook merge does not get rid of or overwrite the non-cooked data, the data that doesn't have that flag. If you choose overwrite, then it's the same as merge, except it also overwrites any non-cooked data that it would conflict with. And then, of course, we have another option, which is remove, which just says anything that was cooked, take it out from this specific object. And I just said a whole bunch of words, and maybe that doesn't mean anything yet, right? We may not have, may not have the context to understand what the heck I actually just said. So let's get into it. Actually, before we get into it, just a sort of quick clarification. You might, for anybody who's used ma3 software before 1.4, you might be familiar with step recipes. And so what's the relationship or difference between step recipes and what we're calling recipes now in version 1.4? Well, step recipes were specifically tied to the step creator window, which we no longer have. The functionality of step creator window got merged into the phaser editor. And so since we don't have that window anymore, we don't need step recipes anymore. So what you're familiar with from step recipes in version 1.3 or earlier, it's totally gone, has nothing to do with the recipes that we're talking about now. Okay, so again, I just said a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see how that actually works. I talked about sort of maintaining the intention. You're maintaining your intention. So maybe you're going to make an all preset that will be your primary verse look for the chorus. Or, sorry, verse look for the chorus. That doesn't make sense. It's going to be your primary verse look for this particular song. So you might say, okay, I've got these fixtures, right? If you were just doing conventional programming, not using recipes, you might say, I'm going to take this set of fixtures and apply this preset, and I'm going to store that as an all preset, right? So you have these fixtures in this selection arrangement. You start from this universal or global color preset, and you're creating selected data for these specific fixtures to be your verse look, right? That's how we would do this conventionally. We can also do this through a recipe. And to make a recipe, I'm going to swipe on this preset. I'm going to do it as an all preset in this case, but it's the same for any other preset. So I'm going to choose Edit Option, which opens the Edit Preset window. And we have this recipe section. I'm going to right-click or long press or edit this line to have a new recipe line. And so we come back to our ingredients. The ingredients, a recipe is this set of fixtures with that preset and these ma3 settings. So what's the set of fixtures we want to apply to? Well, the Air Mistral group, right? That was this group here, group number 1. And so that's the fixtures, and the data, the values that we want to apply, is this color preset. Now you may have noticed there was a little progress bar that you quickly saw flash across the screen. I'll let you see it again here. All right, real quick, there was just a very quick progress bar. That is because the information, when you change one of the ingredients in your recipe, right? So you're not changing the contents of the ingredient. I didn't change the fixtures in the group. I just said this recipe is now looking at this group and looking at this preset. It automatically cooked for us, right? It did this cook merge. And so now, when we close out, I can see this preset has information in it now. If I clear out, it has selective information, the same as this one. It has this little orange cooking pot icon. That indicates that this preset has a recipe in it. And it has selective data, so I can tap on the preset to select the fixtures, and then I can tap on the preset again to apply it. Right, so this is the same, this preset now resulted in the same information as this preset, right? My recipe preset, after cooking, has the same information as this verse preset. But this also preserves my intention of this group and this preset. So if I now decide that, you know what, the rig is going to be slightly different, or maybe I want to add some additional fixtures to that group, right? Maybe I want to take these fixtures here. I want to add them to this group. So I will store merge into this group. And if I tap on this preset to get a cell fix, notice it's selected these fixtures because it already knows I want to reference this group. I'll bring them to full as well. But when I tap on the preset, the downstage fixtures, these Levantes in this show file, these fixtures don't have the color information because the preset didn't get, I didn't cook the recipe again. I updated the contents of one of the ingredients. So now I need to cook again. Could do this in a few ways. I could swipe on the preset, go to edit option, and choose cook. If you are on real hardware, you can hold MA and tap update. Right? MA update puts cook into your command line. In this case, I just made a cook macro just for convenience during this webinar. So I'm going to cook this preset, choosing merge. And now, when I tap on the preset, it automatically added the red information because it knew that I wanted, when I cooked it, I'm taking this set of fixtures, all of the fixtures in this group, which is everybody selected, and applying the information in it. And then I could, of course, store this anywhere and so forth, the same way you would use any other preset. This works, this preset now works exactly like this preset in terms of storing it into queues and referencing. It's just it has the additional information of my original intention for this preset, which is this group with this preset. And if I change the group, then I can recook and have that same intention. And of course, I could change what I wanted to happen here, right? And instead of being red, I could say, you know what, I want this to be yellow. It automatically cooks. When I apply the preset again, now they're all yellow. Okay, now, this was just a static preset. Maybe we want to turn this into a color wipe. So I could come in here. We have our ma3 options, right? So we have blocks, groups, wings, width. We also have our layer information. So fade, delay, speed, and phase. So maybe I wanted to say delay from 0 to 1, right? 0 to 1 second. And again, I changed one of the ingredients, the delay information, so it automatically cooked. And now when I tap on the preset, automatically applies that delay information. Maybe I want this to have that same wipe, but with 2 wings. Okay, I changed the recipe, so it automatically cooked. And now we've got 2 wings. Okay, if I wanted to get rid of that, and just go back to the left to right wipe, no wings, done. Okay, I can set these settings locally, right? Just here in the recipe, delay from 2 with the wings, etc. But I can also reference an ma3 object. So I could say ma3 delay, right? This ma3 object that I had previously created here, right? This is just delay from 0 to 1. So in my recipe, I'm referencing that 0 to 1 ma3, and you can see it here with the angle brackets. It tells you that it's referencing this ma3 object. So when I click on it, perfect. And I can do the same thing. I have my delay wipe wings of 2. So 0 to half second, 2 wings. Perfect. Hopefully all of that makes sense so far. Let's check in real quick. Araya,
Hey.
was I speaking too fast? Questions that, do I need to go over anything? Go. Clearly I'm speaking too fast. Do I need to go over any of that again?
We have a couple questions.
Okay.
So Jason wants to know first, why not have the console cook automatically when a fixture is added to a group?
Because the console doesn't want to assume that you always want to have this happen. right? You may have added it to a group, and maybe you didn't realize that that group was referenced by a recipe somewhere. Or maybe you added to the group, but you don't want that recipe to use the new group yet, the updated group. So we have it when you change the actual recipe itself, it automatically cooks because clearly you want the new information there. But when you modify the ingredients slightly, modify the content of one of the ingredients, the console doesn't necessarily want to assume that you remembered that that was used somewhere, or that you automatically wanted that to happen. So we leave that we have the cook keyword so that you can decide, do I just want to cook everything? I've changed a bunch of things, so I just want to cook everything, or do I only want to recook the recipe in one particular preset or set of presets, for example. Hopefully that answers that.
You want another question, or did you want to keep talking?
Sure. If it's, yeah, I mean, you know what we're going to go on, so if it's something that is going to be answered otherwise, but.
Yeah, we'll hold this one till later then.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Cool. So continuing on, this was just a preset, or the preset that I referenced in here only had one step, right? It was just a static preset with this yellow. But we can use phasers, right, or multi-step presets in here as well. Maybe I wanted to make, I'll use a dimmer preset here. Sorry, dimmer phaser. So turn off the sequence because we don't need it. So I'm going to make a new preset with a new recipe, and I'll reference this all classical group, and I will choose this dimmer preset. So let's do dimmer PWM. Again, it automatically cooked since I changed what the ingredients in the recipe are. And so now we have this hot icon again. We started with a universal and global, it was PWM, should look at this one. We started with this universal and global preset, but we now have selective information from the cooking process. So now when I tap on this, we've got everybody in there. Maybe this is what you want, but maybe you want to add some phasing to it. So how about phase from 0, oops, clear that, from 0 to 360. Sure, automatically cooks, tap on it again, automatically moving across. Wings of 2, again, we could do something like that just for fun. Tap on it again, PWM with 2 wings. I'm referencing this group here. Okay, and just like before, instead of having these local settings, no wings, we could reference an matrix object. X phase 0 to 360, or phase 0 to 360, wings of 2. Right, so it works exactly the same way, whether it's a static preset with one step, in this case just yellow. In this case, it's a dynamic preset, which happens to have 2 steps, dimmer, on and off. And again, we started from the generic information of a universal or global preset and created selective information for the specific fixtures that I intend, which is the contents of this group. Okay. All right, quick check-in, see if there are any questions on that before we move on to some other ways we can use recipes.
Yeah, so let's say you had to recook a bunch of recipes at once.
Sure, so we have this cook keyword, which I did here from my macro, but again, you could do ma update to put cook, and then you could say like cook preset 25 point star. Right, so this 25 is everything in all 5 spool here. And now, oh, well, everything was already cooked. But that's how you would do that, right? Cook,
Yeah.
preset 25.2 plus 25. Oh, actually, no, that would be 25.2 and 3. Great.
Ready?
Good.
Yeah. So your selection that you made on the selection grid, was that made beforehand or did you do that live?
This I did beforehand, but I can. The way I did it was I changed to this top view, essentially, and did a, in 3D, did a 2D grid lasso, like so, and then store that. Okay? Anything else at the moment?
Nope, we're all good.
Okay, moving on. So, in both of these cases, in both of these examples that we've looked at so far, I included a set of fixtures that I wanted to apply to. I included a preset that I wanted to apply to. And in some cases, you want matrix, in other cases, you don't, of course. But, right, so the recipe ingredients are this group, that preset, those matrix settings. What happens if I don't specify a group? For example, if in this case, maybe I'll add a recipe line, I'm going to leave the group blank, and I'm going to choose this ramp, dimmer ramp preset, and I'll give it some matrix settings, phase 0 to 60 with 2 wings. So I didn't specify a group, so it doesn't know what fixtures I want to apply to. It only knows I want this preset with these matrix settings. So since it doesn't know what fixtures it can apply to, it can't cook, right? Because what fixtures am I supposed to create data for? What this means is that now I can select any set of fixtures and tap on this preset, right, which we know it has the recipe in it, it just doesn't have any extra data. I can tap on, say, this group, and tap on the preset, and it automatically cooks that information into the program. Right, so I've sort of created what you might call a template dimmer ramp. Right, because I can apply this to any set of fixtures. Right, assuming that my source preset, my original source preset, can apply to any fixtures, which is again why you want to use universal or global presets as your recipe ingredients. Right, I could just select a circle truss and have this dimmer ramp template, and if I edit it and change it to different matrix settings and then apply it again, now I just have 0 to 360. Right? So when you don't have the group, when you don't specify the group in your recipe, then that's when it sort of becomes what you could call a template. So maybe I have a dimmer ramp, maybe I make one in here that is a relative circle and 0 to 360, and so that's referencing this global and universal relative circle that I made. And now any fixtures, we'll label this, label save lives, rel circle template. And I got my circle truss, bring it to full, and I'm running a circle. Relative circle, of course, and since they were just pointing straight down, that's what you see. I could make another one for this CMY color preset, CMY color phaser. We give it wings of 2. We want a phase there as well. And if I grab my LED wall and bring it to full and tap, there we go. CMY template. So then, of course, you could have a handful of these in an all preset, or again, I'm just using an all preset for convenience since I can store anything in here, but your CMY template, you could have that in your color pool. Your dimmer template, you could have in your dimmer pool, right? These work the same way. In your dimmer presets, you can swipe on an empty dimmer preset, edit option, and add recipes there as well. Okay. The all pool just allows me to do all of this in one place without having to keep changing around. We can do this with static presets as well. So no group, but a blue preset and a delay wipe. And so this will be blue wipe template. And this one will do the same thing, no group, and we'll do a cyan wipe. Right, so oops, now I can clear everybody and grab my fixtures, bring the full blue wipe across, cyan wipe across, or choose a different set of fixtures, the LED wall, blue wipe, cyan wipe. Right, again, so a recipe with a preset and potentially a matrix. So again, you don't always have to use a matrix settings in here. But no group means that when you select, you can select any fixtures and tap on that uncooked recipe, and it will automatically cook into the program, right? So you can use this and then store that information into queues the same way you would anything else. Store that into a preset, right? So start from your sort of template phaser, tap, so choose your fixtures, tap on your template, store that as a new preset that you're going to sort of work from. And then, of course, also use those for busking, where I just have a bunch of templates, these fixtures, this wipe, go. Or these fixtures, this phaser template, go. Pause there for another question check-in.
Yeah, not sure if you got to this, but is there going to be a specific pool for recipes?
Recipes are part of a preset. They're part of other things as well, which I'll come to in a second. So there isn't a specific pool for recipes because they're just included in the presets. Now, again, we do have 5 all pools. So you could use, if you wanted to, you could dedicate one of those to be your template recipe preset pool, but you don't have to. And you can set it up however you like. If you wanted to keep your dimmer recipes in your dimmer pool, that works. And your color recipes in your color pool, that works. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, a couple more things.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you have more than one preset in a recipe? For example, color and position.
Yes, certainly. In all of these recipes, or all of these presets that we've made so far, we've only done one recipe line. But the same preset can have multiple recipes. And each of those recipe lines has its own set of ingredients. So if you wanted to, you could make all of them reference the same group, or you could have different recipe lines reference different groups. And they can reference the same presets or different presets. And this is another advantage of using an all pool here, or an all preset here, because I could say, I want these fixtures to be, right, I want to use this preset, and I want to use this, I want them to be at 100, and I want them to have this gobo, and I want them to have, what am I missing? Position. And I want them to have, I want them to do pan wave, right? Oh, and the fan wave, we need phase, right, and so forth, right? So now I've created this. So I'd say delete preset 25.2.5 and 6. Recipes are children of presets. So this is preset all pool 25, all pool 5, preset 2, recipe 5 and 6. I'm just going to get rid of those. There we go. I needed the space between the pluses. And now, so this preset has all of this information for these fixtures, right? Color, position, dimmer, gobo. If I clear out, now they're doing whatever that is. Oh, these Levantes don't have that gobo, but the Mistral's in the back do. Oh, well, let's do this. Let's copy our Air Mistral group over to this, overwrite, and let's cook clear all. There we go. Right, I just updated my group and then recooked. Any other questions that I should cover now before moving on, Araya? Oh, you hid yourself? I guess that means no. Okay. Oh, you're muted.
Really hard to unmute myself. Wait, what? So you talked about the groupless preset, and then a groupless recipe, but you also can have presets that are essentially groupless. So what's the benefit of using the recipe over the effect, a template in the effect pool, or a phaser in the preset pool?
So let's see if I'm understanding. Right. So like for example, with this PWM preset, this is global or universal, right? So you could think of it as a quote unquote template phaser, but this doesn't have any matrix information. So if you wanted to specify a phase range or groups, blocks, wings, settings, in that case, you would need to use the recipe so that you can have that in here, referencing these locally or using these local settings or referencing an matrix object. Cool.
Keep going.
Anything else before moving on?
You're good for now.
Okay. We'll kind of quickly, it's getting down there on time-wise, so we'll kind of try and quickly move through this. So I mentioned that presets can have recipes. Cue parts can also have recipes. Recipes don't only have to be used in presets. You could, for example, use this to build the structure of your show or particular sequence, whatever, without knowing what the exact fixtures are, what the exact fixtures you're going to have are. So let's look at the way to use this. So I'm going to make a dummy group, right? This will be fill in later because I don't know what the fixtures are going to be, but I know I'm going to want a set of fixtures to do this. And I'm going to store an empty sequence. And to look at the recipes in your queues, technically in your queue parts, in my sequence sheet, I'm going to go to the settings for the sequence sheet, go to the mask tab, and turn on show recipes. And so this window will be very familiar to you because it looks exactly the same as in a preset. Okay, so I'm going to add a recipe to this. And what am I going to do? In this simple example, I'm going to make a short sequence of color whites. So the group is going to be this fill in later group, which I'm going to decide what fixtures are after the fact and fill that in. In this first preset, queue, we'll go red, and we're going to do a delay wipe 0 to 1. Okay, and now I want a bunch of these. So I'm going to say copy Q1 at 2 through 5. Okay, now I have 5 empty queues. They all have recipes, right? We see the same icon that we saw in the presets. In the track sheet, I don't have any data yet because these couldn't cook since they didn't know what group. I did specify a group, but the group doesn't have any fixtures in it. So in this one, we had red. In this one, we will make it yellow. In this one, we will make it green. In this one, we will make it cyan. And in this one, we'll make it blue. Right, so they all have the same ma3 settings. They're all referencing this fill in later group, and it's just the different color. Okay, now I know what fixtures I want in this stack. Maybe we'll use our LED wall here. So I'm just going to change this to linearize so I can show off something. Right, so I have all of my fixtures here. I'm going to merge them into this group. And go back to my fixture, so my sequence sheets still have nothing in here because I didn't change the actual ingredients, I changed the contents of the ingredients, right? I changed this group. So now I need to recook this sequence. Cook, sequence, and now automatically I have all this information for all of my LEDs. And if we go back to 3D here, let's put this on the button. Now I have this wipe. And it's wiping in this direction because I did a linear order. But, oh wait, no, that's not the order I wanted. I wanted them in this grid. That's what I wanted. So let me store overwrite and recook this sequence. And now when I run it, I'm moving across because I'm using the new selection arrangement in that sequence. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, and maybe I could come in here and I should store the view. Why aren't I seeing this? Alright, what am I doing wrong? Let's try a new sequence sheet. I don't know what I was doing wrong there, but I will store this as a new view. And I'll come in here and choose a different ma3 object, which I made specifically for this. Because it's fun playing with X and Y, right? I was only showing you the ma3 settings for the x-axis, but we have ma3 settings for the y-axis as well. Right, so I have delay X and delay Y, and because our arrangement has X and Y grid coordinates, now I've got this diagonal wipe. And I'm referencing this ma3 object, so I could edit this ma3 object and say I want to go from 1 to 0 on X, clear everything out, recook this sequence. Oops, not those, these. Now I just reversed the direction of the wipe by reversing my matrix settings. Cool. Mariah, what questions do we have?
I don't know if this one is too much for right now, but you like breaking things. So
yes, I do.
Can you update a preset /cue, etc., utilizing a recipe and break the recipe link, preventing future cooking modifications?
Right, so you create a recipe in here, right? And then, so now this cooks information into the preset. Then you recall the preset. You then recall the preset and store a cue. Right, that's what we're talking about?
I think so.
So all of this is referencing this cue. And at this point, the cue referencing the preset works the same way as a cue referencing a preset that doesn't have a recipe in it, right? If the recipe would just be used to update what's in the preset. If you delete the recipe or delete the preset, the cue still exists with all its information, right? If I delete this, now my preset still exists, or sorry, my cue still exists. The information is just all hard values. It's not referencing the preset anymore. I think that, hopefully that answers the question. What else we got?
Eric, I don't know 100% sure if this is the answer, but he said to repeat the command for editing a recipe.
Repeat the command for editing a recipe.
I missed that part, so I don't know if you had set a command in there.
So recipes are, if we're talking about addressing recipes via the command line, maybe.
Yeah.
So recipes are children of presets. So, well, if you're talking about a recipe in a preset. So it would be preset. So in here, if I wanted to add a recipe line here to this one, right? This one doesn't have a recipe line. I could add that via the command line by saying store preset 25, right? All pool 5, 25.1, preset 1, recipe line 1. Now I've got a recipe in here, which I could then change the settings of. And then for cues, recipes are children of the part, not the cue. So if I wanted to add a recipe line here, I could say store cue 1 parts 2500.1. And now this cue part has a recipe line. Hopefully that answers that.
If we did not answer your question, please feel free to call us.
Yes,
and we will do a much better job if this was not satisfactory. Tess has a good one. She said, can you only have, since you only have from X to X options, is there a way for them to use a 3-part fader delay, like in ma2 language, delay 0 through 2 through 0?
Well, 0 through 2 through 0, that specific example, or the example where it's symmetrical on both sides, instead of doing a 0 through 2 through 0, you could just do 0 through 2 with wings of 2. So if the start and end are going to be the same, and the middle is going to be different, then that's just the same as wings. If you wanted to do something asymmetrically, like 0 through 2 through 7, or something like that, then I don't think there's an easy way to do that with these settings. If your selection grid arrangement was set up with fixtures spaced out, the further apart they got, then you could do something like that, I guess. Cool. What else?
Did you have more stuff, or are we just playing the question game?
No, I think, yeah, we were approaching an hour here, so I think we should maybe do 1 or 2 more questions, and then we will call that good.
Tom asked, can you nest recipes? I don't know if you want to talk about how embedding presets how that functions with all this.
Let's see. Can you nest recipes? So you can't have a recipe inside a recipe, I guess. And recipes create selective data. So you, I guess, could in theory use cooked data as the preset for another recipe, but at that point it's already selective. It's not generic, so it's probably not really getting you much. You could you could create a recipe that with cooked data and then embed the results of that into another preset, which at that point would just be like embedding a selective preset into any other preset. So so I'm not sure about nesting recipes. Maybe Tom, if you had a specific example that you had in mind or a specific use case, maybe you can shoot us an email and we can dig into that more. Let's do one more.
Okay.
Find one more good one, and then we'll call that good.
Can you cook a recipe in blind mode?
Can you cook a recipe in blind mode? So cooking happens independent of the programmer, except, of course, if you're selecting fixtures and cooking into the programmer. But if you're cooking into the programmer, then if you have blind enabled, right? So you select some fixtures, enable blind, and tap on like one of these template ones that didn't have a group in it, then that would be happening in blind. And if you're just editing a recipe in a preset or in a queue part and cooking that, none of that happens in the programmer anyway. That just happens in the background. And then you'll notice, by the way, that when we changed, so here if I grab this group, grab this color presets, let's do a different one. Let's do that one just for fun. So when I grab these fixtures, grab these fixtures and bring the full tap on it. Right, if I then later change the contents to use, say, a different preset, it automatically cooked into the preset, but it didn't reapply that information in the programmer. Right, so it changes the information in the preset, but waits for you to say, oh, yes, actually apply this information. Hopefully that answered that question. So
I have one last yes or no question.
Okay, go for it.
Yes or no? From Eric. Does anyone call you Orion?
Some people, yes. My real name is Orion, like the constellation. I've just generally gone by Ryan for most of my life, but yeah, some people do. And I certainly respond to it if people call me that. Most often though, it's in like doctor's offices or things like that when somebody is seeing me for the first time and they just see my real name on the paperwork and call me Orion. So that's the most common thing. But yes, Orion. Some people do call me that. Cool. So I think that's it. So just to kind of close out this topic here. As you can see, recipes, it's a really big topic. You can have recipes in presets. You can have recipes in queue parts. We didn't even talk about the fact that you can make recipes in programmer parts, right? There's so much to this. So really take some time to play with this so you can wrap your head around the possibilities. One tip that we generally suggest is try to minimize the amount of mixing and matching in terms of whether you have recipes in presets or recipes in queue parts. It kind of, having recipes in a bunch of different, using recipes in a bunch of different ways in the same show file, you're probably going to confuse yourself more than it'll help. So sometimes you might want to do that, but it's just be very careful when you're mixing those, because it can sort of break your brain. And then, of course, this is just the initial implementation, right? Recipes are new to this version. So in terms of workflow, things are going to, we're going to improve the workflow, have more possibilities. So one thing I even forgot to mention is that if you have a recipe line, you can, instead of choosing from the drop-down list, you can just assign objects directly to recipe lines. You can assign presets, you can assign groups, you can assign matrix directly to your recipe line. So if you have, multiple windows open, you can do that there. I didn't show it to you with the presets here because, of course, this is taking up the full screen in our PC. So yes, the workflow will continue to improve here. So look for more, or maybe look for faster workflows as we improve this in future versions. If you have questions that we didn't have time to get to, feel free to contact your local distributor. If you're in North America, that's us here at Act Lighting, support@actlighting.com. Or if you're outside of North America, contact your local distributor. If you're playing around with this and you think you found a bug, or if you have an idea about how we could improve it with a feature request, again, contact your local distributor. And then just to point out real quick, a few learning resources we have available. Of course, check out the help manual, right? A lot of the stuff that I covered is here in the release notes, potentially better explained than me just spamming stuff. So don't just look at the help manual. Make sure you're also looking at the release notes. Read the release notes. That's basically the first thing I always read when we get a new version. If you're not familiar with it, if you haven't used it already, check out the official MA Lighting forum. There's an entire Grand ma3 section on there. And I'm on there relatively frequently, and obviously people from MA International. We have the ACT Academy. We have these Grand ma3 courses already, and we're currently in the process of updating all of these to include the new stuff in 1.4. And at the same time, while we're updating these, we are also in the process of creating what we're calling mini courses on specific topics. So when we get all this updated, we will also have a specific recipes mini course where you can learn about everything we just talked about, plus some extra stuff. There will be a phasers mini course. Basically, all the content will be broken down into those mini courses as well. So if there's one particular area that you want to brush up on, you can check out just that mini course rather than going through the whole thing. And we're hoping to get that available within the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, keep an eye out on our knowledge base, support.actlighting.com. We have obviously all of our old Grand ma2 stuff, but we have a handful of Grand ma3 bulletins as well. ArtNet SACN, a handy processing unit calculator for figuring out how many processing units you need for your particular parameter count, and so forth. Araya, did I miss anything?
Probably, but we'll do it again.
Well, thank you all for coming. Again, have a happy new year. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and hopefully we will be able to see you in person soon. Have a good one.